Hey guys, tonight we drift into the warm dust of a medieval African morning, not the kind filled with fanfare or epic battles, but the kind where the first thing to greet your sleepy face is a stick. Not just any stick, mind you. A sacred, splintery wand passed down by generations, revered not for its symbolism, but because it keeps your breath from knocking out camels. The village is already humming with life. Roosters call from crooked rooftops. Goats argue loudly under the thorny shade of an acacia tree. Somewhere, a mother is pounding millet while her toddler tries to eat mud. You stretch, crack your knuckles, and sit up on a woven mat that's more dust than cushion. Outside, a woman walks past balancing a pot on her head and chewing vigorously on a thin, bark-covered twig. You're next. The chewing stick, called a miswak or arak stick in some parts, is your toothbrush. Forget the plastic handle or minty paste. This is raw nature cut fresh from the Salvadora persica tree. Fragrant, fibrous, and shockingly effective. You scrape the end with a rock or knife until it softens into a frayed brush. Then, with some practiced jaw flexing, you chew and scrub and chew some more. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and what time it is where you are. I love knowing where in the world you're brushing your teeth with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge barefoot toward the edge of the compound, where elders sit under a lean-to, inspecting their own sticks. The sun isn't quite up yet, and the air smells faintly of ash, fermented grain, and old sandalwood. You're handed a bundle of freshly cut twigs, bound in braided grass. One of the elders' gestures start chewing. You do. The taste is spicy bitter at first, then herbal, even cooling. Not bad. The bark has natural antiseptics, sodium bicarbonate, silica, and essential oils that help clean, polish, and even protect your enamel. But no one here talks about chemistry. They talk about clean teeth, clean heart. The community believes dental hygiene is linked to spiritual purity. Before prayer, before meals, before speaking to someone of higher status, you brush. The village imam once said a person who greets you with unbrushed teeth insults not only the nose, but the soul. You take another look around. Most people here have teeth you'd expect on a Colgate ad white, aligned, surprisingly intact, and they've never seen a dentist. Historians still argue whether these traditional methods outperformed medieval European tooth care, which usually involved cloves, vinegar, and, if you were unlucky, urine. What we do know, most medieval African communities understood oral hygiene not as a chore, but as ritual. You walk over to a small stone basin and spit out the chewed bark fibers. No one here swishes, no rinse, just a quick rub of charcoal-dusted fingers to polish off the job. You feel your teeth with your tongue cleaner than you'd expected. Later, you're asked to help prepare more sticks for the next market day. You follow a wiry man named Tamba into the brushland beyond the village. He talks in a mix of jokes and proverbs. If your stick is weak, your teeth will weep. You find the right tree slender, light green leaves, slightly salty scent. Salvadora persica grows where most plants give up arid, saline, unforgiving soils. You cut low branches, avoiding thicker wood. Tamba shows you how to rub the bark between your palms to test freshness. It should feel like it's sweating. As you carry the bundle back, you can't help but wonder, how did this tradition start? Was there a first brusher? A person who bit a branch one day and thought, well, that's refreshing. Some say the practice dates back thousands of years. Chewing sticks are found in records from Pharaonic Egypt and even earlier Nubian sites. Islamic teachings later codified it. Prophet Muhammad was said to use the siwak daily, and it spread across North Africa and into West Africa with the expansion of Islam. Still, local variations thrived. Different regions use different plants, each with specific properties. And some elders here claim the best time to cut a stick is during a waxing moon, for maximum cleansing spirit. Historians roll their eyes, but can't disprove it either. You pause to watch a small boy chase a chicken while chewing his own tiny stick. A girl next to him inspects her reflection in a bowl of water, brushing with slow, practiced movements. There's something calming about it all. No rush, no electric buzzing, just wood and patience. And yet, not everything is so peaceful. You're warned not to take sticks from certain trees ones associated with ancestral spirits or known to cause gum bleeding. A woman once used the wrong bark and her tongue swelled up for days. Another whispered that the brush chose her mouth for punishment. You decide not to ask follow-up questions. Back in the village, your arms are tired and your mouth tingles. You've chewed, cleaned, and carried. And just before sunset, someone hands you a final surprise, a string necklace with a dried brushing twig tied in the center. Traveler's brush, they explain, so your mouth never smells lost. You tie it on. Who knew that bedtime would begin with dental wisdom older than castles, cathedrals, and almost every toothpaste that you've ever seen? You wake before the sun again, but this time it's not the village sounds that stir you. It's the tug of curiosity and the faint taste of bark still lingering on your tongue. Today, you're heading across the dry edge of the Sahel in search of more than just sticks. You're after the roots of a tradition, literally. You travel on foot, following a dusty trade path marked by flattened grass and occasional dung piles. Crisping in the morning heat, the landscape rolls out in faded ochres and muted greens. Thorny shrubs snag your ankles. The wind carries a dry breath from the east. Somewhere behind you, a donkey brays like it's been wronged. By midday, you spot a cluster of market tents at the base of a cracked hill. It's a trading post, not big enough to be a city, but large enough for rumors to gather, linger, and multiply. Spices, beads, dried fish, copper tools, and yes, bundles of chewing sticks wrapped in dyed cloth or cowhide pouches. It's like the oral care aisle of a medieval Walgreens, only with more flies. Your guide today is Asha, a merchant with gold rings on every finger and teeth so bright they might cause sunstroke. She sees you eyeing her bundle of slender branches and smiles. Salvadora persica, she says, tapping one stick. We call it arak, or tooth shepherd. It keeps teeth obedient. You buy a few sticks, not just because of her sales pitch, but because they smell faintly like crushed pepper and lemon bark. The aroma alone feels like it could fight cavities. Asha insists this tree only grows in certain salt-crusted soils where other trees wither. Hard land makes strong medicine, she says. She slices one stick open with a curved blade. The inner pulp is soft, almost juicy, and the exposed surface glistens like it's sweating its secrets. You rub your finger along it and feel a slight grit, nature's built-in toothpaste. It even foams a little when chewed. That's the saponins doing their work, she explains, grinning like someone with insider info on gingivitis. You test one on the spot. It's bitter, astringent, and oddly refreshing. Your gums tingle. You feel a brief surge of regret for every time you ever used a sad, frayed toothbrush with blue plastic bristles. The markets in this region often double as public dental clinics, informal ones. You watch a wrinkled man demonstrate proper brushing technique to a circle of wide-eyed children. Up, down, not round, round. He scolds gently. One girl has a stick in each hand and is using both at once like she's drumming on her own molars. A local healer joins in, showing how to mix dried bark powder with crushed charcoal from the cooking fire. Morning for bark, she says. Evening for ash. You raise a brow. Ash. She nods. It draws out night demons from the gums. Probably not FDA approved. But hey, the people here seem healthier than most medieval monks. Historians still debate how widely these practices spread, or how effective they truly were. But archaeological finds of ancient African skulls show surprisingly low instances of tooth decay. It's a sharp contrast to European remains of the same period, often riddled with rot. Some researchers argue that the lack of refined sugar in these diets helped. Others point to chewing sticks and local botanicals as key. Back on the road, Asha lets you stop beneath a sparse shade tree. She tells you about different plants used across regions, neem branches in the east, the roots of mahogany or bitter cola in the west, even sweet fig twigs for children. Each has its own taste, its own benefits, its own cautionary tale. Never chew black tamarind bark, she warns. Dead serious. It stains the teeth purple. Some do it on purpose, but not everyone survives the ridicule. And then she offers you a gift, a small bundle wrapped in dyed goat skin, inside of which are tiny samples from all over the region. Each is labeled in flowing script. Some are pale yellow and twiggy, others almost black and gnarled. One is sticky to the touch and smells oddly like roasted onions. Use that one only when you are alone, she says, smiling wickedly. You take in the vastness of this single subject, how oral hygiene here isn't just about clean teeth. It's linked to trade, botany, ritual, and identity. There's even a whole class of people in some areas, wandering brushers, who travel between villages, teaching new brushing chants and introducing rare stick blends. The medieval version of oral influencers, basically. By nightfall, you and Asha set camp near a dry creek bed. The sky turns indigo, then ink black, speckled with stars. Around a small fire, she tells one last tale. Once, a king lost his wife because she refused to use arak bark. Her breath, she whispers dramatically, killed 3 birds in a cage before she even spoke. You both laugh, and for a moment the fire crackles like a punchline. You look at your hands still sticky with sap, and your teeth feel oddly pampered. Out here in the middle of nowhere, you're starting to feel like you've joined an ancient, tree-based fraternity of freshness. One last brushing before bed. No toothpaste, no running water, just you, a twig, and the soft wind over dry grass. The next morning begins with smoke. Not the terrifying kind, but the lazy, curling tendrils of herbal incense smoldering in a carved calabash bowl just outside a healer's tent. You're in a village not far from the last outpost, nestled between rolling dunes and scrubby brush. Here, dental hygiene isn't only about chewing sticks. It's a full-body, full-senses experience. You've entered the realm of pastes, powders, and rituals that feel more like wizardry than dentistry. A woman beckons you inside a tent layered with woven mats and shelves of dried leaves, roots, and clays. She wears a necklace of small bones and smells faintly of camphor. Her name is Bintu, and today you're her assistant or guinea pig, possibly both. On a low table, she's arranged small bowls like a sleepy chemist. One holds finely ground charcoal, black and soft as soot. Another glimmers faintly crushed oyster shell, she explains, or sometimes eggshell when shellfish aren't available. There's also dried ginger powder, something bitter that might be eucalyptus leaf, and a tiny dish of ash from burned palm kernels. She mixes them slowly with a few drops of water and a little oil, maybe shea, maybe something more pungent. The result is a grayish-black paste that looks, frankly, like something you'd scrape off a chimney. You dip your finger in and dab it onto your teeth. The texture is gritty. The taste is intense, smoky, earthy, somewhere between campfire and mint gone rogue. Then comes the brushing, not with a stick this time, but with a tightly bound bundle of stiff grass stalks, tied at one end with leather thread. It's almost like a homemade paintbrush, and it squeaks against your teeth as you scrub. Bintu watches you carefully and offers a single comment. Don't swallow it unless you want your dreams to catch fire. Joking, probably. You spit into a hollowed gourd and rinse your mouth with warm water steeped in cloves and a hint of lemon leaf. The warmth seeps through your gums, and despite the bizarre cocktail of flavors, your teeth feel shockingly smooth, clean, even pampered. Historians still argue whether these clay and ash-based concoctions were safe in the long term. Some claim the abrasiveness could damage enamel. Others say the mineral content helped strengthen teeth. What's clear is that people cared deeply and experimented widely. Where Europeans might have rinsed with wine or vinegar, folks here developed ingredient lists that rivaled modern toothpaste tubes, minus the fluoride. You help Bintu prepare more batches for the market. The process is methodical drying leaves over a clay hearth, grinding roots with a heavy pestle, sifting powders through cloth for a finer texture. She lets you mix your own blend. You get cocky with the ginger and regret it. Almost instantly, your mouth feels like it's hosting a bonfire. She cackles with glee and adds more charcoal to balance your foolishness. One of the village boys drops by, holding out a small cloth pouch like it's treasure. Inside is a thick, sticky glob that smells strongly of mint and eucalyptus. It's a chewing resin made from a plant root mixed with honey and tree sap. You bite into a piece and immediately regret it. It's like gnawing a cough drop made of glue, but your breath does smell better afterward. Probably forever? As the day stretches on, you begin to understand how elaborate these routines can get. Bintu talks about cooling pastes for gum inflammation, made with dried cucumber skin and melon seeds, and hot rubs for toothaches involving cayenne pepper and camphor oil. She mentions using red clay during rituals to honor ancestors, who are said to smile better when the living keep their teeth pure. There's also a strange little side room in her tent, filled with dried animal parts and bundles of feathers. You point at one peculiar jar, and she raises an eyebrow. For snakebite, or bad breath, hard to say. She tells you about a legend, a man whose teeth turned black, not from rot, but from overusing certain root mixtures meant for warriors. He smiled, she says, and night fell early. Some tribes intentionally darken their teeth with ash or herbs as a symbol of strength. Others use bright white clays to bleach them. You learn that appearance isn't just about cleanliness, it's layered with meaning. A shiny smile might suggest youth, wealth, even moral purity. In some regions, sharpened or filed teeth were fashionable, adding to your bite reputation, as Bintu calls it. By now, your head's spinning with every powder, paste, and pounded potion. You step out of the tent into the late afternoon light, blinking as if you've been underground. The village smells like herbs and fresh millet bread. You pass a few children playing a game with stones, and every one of them has something in their mouth, a stick, a chew, or a paste. One of the elders is seated nearby, brushing slowly with a stick dipped in red clay. He hums a song you don't recognize. You sit next to him, curious. First thing in the morning, he says without looking at you, and last before sleep. Not for your teeth, for your spirit. There's a pause. Then he chuckles. But it's also for your teeth. You nod and lean back against the rough wall of a hut. The sun dips lower, painting the ground in long golden stripes. Your teeth feel smoother than they have in weeks. Your lips taste like eucalyptus. And as you watch a group of girls mixing ash with lemon peel, you realize something strange. You're starting to look forward to brushing your teeth. You wake up to laughter, bubbly, snorting, unfiltered laughter, and it's coming from a group of teenagers sitting near a fire, daring each other to try different brushing concoctions. One boy dabs his stick into a suspicious green paste that immediately makes him gag and spit into the dirt. Another proudly unveils his family's secret, a minty, cooling powder made from dried lemongrass and pounded cucumber seeds. You sit down with them, curious. They're brushing not just to clean their teeth, but to test their bravery. The girl next to you nudges over a small jar and says, "Try this. It's intense." You scoop a tiny bit of pale paste onto your stick, hesitant. The texture is creamy, almost like wet clay. But the moment it hits your mouth, whoa, it's salty, gritty. And there's an undercurrent of something farmy. She grins. Goat dung? You nearly spit it out onto your own knees. What? She shrugs. Dried, burned, powdered. My grandmother swears by it. You stare at her. She seems healthy. Her teeth are cleaner than yours. And now, you're stuck between skepticism and admiration. Historians still argue whether these stranger ingredients were symbolic, medicinal, or simply based on trial and error. One traveler's filth is another healer's miracle. Today is about exploring the full spectrum of what toothpaste meant in the medieval African world. You quickly learn there's no one-size-fits-all. Some people in the Sahel region used soft plant stems mixed with river clay. Others, from coastal areas, relied on salty seaweeds or even powdered oyster shells to brighten their enamel. You visit a nearby herbalist, an older man with hands like tree roots and a laugh that sounds like it's been fermented in palm wine. His approach is a bit more mystical. He invites you into his hut and pulls out bundles of dried herbs, feathers, and even snakeskins. You brace for another goat dung moment, but he smiles. No tricks, only teeth. He gives you a small wooden bowl filled with a powder so fine it looks like gray smoke. Crushed acacia bark and charcoal. Rub it gently. Don't scrub like a donkey in a thorn bush. His metaphors are vivid. His paste is surprisingly pleasant. While applying it with a stick, you notice a small mural painted on the side of his home, a line of figures brushing their teeth under a crescent moon. Some wear beads, others feathers, but all seem to share a joyful grin. Night brushing invites good dreams, he explains, and wards off spirit ants. You're about to ask what a spirit ant is, but decide maybe you're not ready for that yet. As you travel deeper into the region, you learn about another favorite burned kola nut powder mixed with honey and lemon juice. The effect is like licking a sour campfire, but it leaves your breath smelling oddly floral. One woman boasts her husband fell in love with her because her teeth tasted like celebration. That's strangely romantic. Some pastes use roots with numbing qualities. Chew too long, and your whole jaw goes pleasantly slack. A kind of organic Novocaine. One stick, harvested from the bitter kola tree, has a subtle anesthetic effect. Local hunters chew it before heading into the bush, both for oral care and to keep calm during tense moments. You also hear about something called sun paste, a golden-colored blend made from dried mango skin, turmeric, and crushed limestone. It's said to brighten the teeth while protecting the gums from infection. But be warned, use too much, and your lips turn yellow for days. A rite of passage, apparently. The regional differences are fascinating. In highland areas, pine ash is common. In jungle regions, they prefer moist herbs and plantain skin. Coastal areas might even blend seafood shells for an extra shine. A local story catches your ear: a boy who overused clove ash until his gums turned purple. He smiled once and scared a hyena, someone says. And you're never quite sure how much is legend and how much is a warning. There's a moment where you pause and consider the sheer range of what humans have put in their mouths for the sake of clean teeth. Burnt seeds, crushed flowers, animal ash, bark saps, clay dug from riverbanks. Even today, researchers have rediscovered some of these traditional ingredients for modern herbal toothpaste lines. Turns out the elders weren't just improvising, they were experimenting with generations of biological knowledge. Historians often forget that these ancient formulas weren't just about flavor or tradition. They were also medical. People noticed which ones healed bleeding gums, which ones cooled infections, which ones made a kiss sweeter. Toothpaste wasn't just hygiene, it was chemistry, pharmacology, even courtship strategy. In one quiet village, you visit a midwife who prepares a special blend just for new mothers, something gentle, calming, meant to ease postnatal inflammation. She offers you a taste, It's floral, almost perfumed. "We keep our smiles strong for our babies," she says. You nod, trying to ignore the bitter aftertaste blooming across your tongue. As dusk rolls in, you sit by a low fire, stick in hand, applying a fine black paste made from ashes and cinnamon. The scent reminds you of fireplaces and spice markets. You glance at your reflection in a bowl of still water. Your teeth glimmer faintly in the firelight. You think of the boy with the purple gums, of the girl with the dung paste, of the healer who made you laugh until your jaw ached. And slowly, as the stars come out, you chew, scrub, and spit just like everyone else in this dusty, fragrant, and remarkably fresh-smelling world. You awake to murmurs and sandalwood smoke drifting through an open window carved into smooth mud walls. The air smells sweet and heavy, thicker than before. You're no longer sleeping on a mat beside a cooking fire. No, today you're waking inside the guest quarters of a compound that belongs to a man whose smile could bankrupt a gemstone merchant. You've been summoned well, invited to the court of a regional sultan. His name is Al-Haji Bako, and apparently his tooth care routine is something of a legend. His servants whisper about it. Poets have written short verses about the gleam of his incisors. One elder even claimed the Sultan once smiled during negotiations and won a trade deal without saying a word. And now, you're here, with your dusty travel pouch and your humble chewing sticks, staring at a polished bronze plate filled with the royal dental kit. It gleams. Tiny ivory tools, gold-trimmed bark bundles, powders stored in turtle shells, pastes wrapped in palm leaves tied with silk thread. There's even a miniature fan used to dry the Sultan's gums after cleaning, because apparently letting your mouth air dry like a donkey's foot is not acceptable when you're royalty. You're ushered into a shaded courtyard where servants are already laying out the day's oral cleansing tools. The Sultan enters, robes sweeping the tiled floor, and nods at you with a grin so dazzling you reflexively squint. You kneel, and your job begins not as his guest, but as his assistant for the day. Lucky you! The first step, rosewater rinse, infused with cloves and myrrh. It's poured into a small golden cup, swished, then spat into a ceremonial spittoon shaped like a lion. The scent fills the courtyard. You're tempted to try it yourself, but think better of it, one wrong move, and you could end up polishing the spittoon with your own sleeve. Next comes the cleaning. The Sultan uses not a simple chewing stick, but one that has been soaked overnight in tamarind juice and cardamom oil. The fibers are soft, perfumed, and slightly tinted, like an artisanal toothbrush straight from a perfume catalog. You hand it to him reverently, praying it doesn't snap in two. He brushes with slow, deliberate motions while reciting verses. You suspect the verses aren't about teeth, but about gratitude and blessings. Either way, it creates a soothing rhythm. Then, the tooth powder crushed pearls mixed with burnt coconut husk and a hint of cinnamon. It smells luxurious and vaguely beachy. He dips his stick into the powder and scrubs again, humming now. The sound echoes softly around the courtyard like a lullaby for plaque. Historians still debate whether medieval African elites like Bako adopted these practices independently or borrowed elements from other cultures. Given the trade routes stretching from Cairo to Kano, Timbuktu to Zanzibar, it's likely they incorporated tips and tools from all over. But no matter the source, it's clear this wasn't just about health. This was ceremony. One of the attendants tells you that after meals, the Sultan always brushes again, this time with a different twig entirely, one from the kola tree, known for its slight bitterness and supposed post-feast purification. There's even a midday mouth massage with shea butter and mint, for soft lips and peaceful speech, he says. But not everything in the kit is beautiful. You're handed a strange vial with something sludgy and dark inside. Emergency breath paste. Someone whispers. You don't ask what it's made of, but a whiff suggests aged garlic and roasted clay. You mentally file that one under break glass only in social emergencies. At one point, the Sultan beckons you closer. He gestures to a tiny wooden box and opens it dramatically. Inside, dried lemongrass, bits of frankincense, and most shockingly, a few flecks of gold leaf. To polish before ceremonies, he explains, gold shines teeth, and teeth shine soul. He even demonstrates dabbing a moist cloth in the mix and rubbing it across his molars. The result? Subtle sparkle. And now you know this man doesn't just floss, he flaunts. But even here, amid elegance, practicality remains. You notice a simple palm fiber brush hanging from a hook. For travel, a servant explains, the Sultan prefers to clean his teeth at sunrise, even in the desert. Respect. Later in the afternoon, a visiting merchant arrives from across the river. He's brought spices, bolts of cloth, and a new tooth powder from the eastern coast made with crushed coral and dried mango peel. The Sultan is intrigued. He tests it, nods thoughtfully, then hands the merchant a heavy pouch of cowries. Business, sealed with breath. You find yourself quietly impressed not just by the rituals, but by how oral care is clearly status, science, and social game all in one. There's no doubt that the court understands the power of a smile. In a world without Instagram filters or LED whitening strips, a healthy grin was the real flex. As night falls, the Sultan invites a griot to sing stories of his ancestors. The tale includes a queen who could charm snakes with her voice and charm rivals with her flawless teeth, whiter than river foam. You lean back against a warm pillar, your own teeth tingling from all the cleaning you've witnessed, and almost drift off before remembering one last job. You're handed a leaf-wrapped mint paste to deliver to the guest quarters. As you pass the final courtyard, you see a servant brushing his own teeth with a humble stick, no gold, no pearls, no turtle shells. Just bark, water, and habit. Maybe that's the real secret. You wake not to birdsong or bustling markets this time, but to the distant rush of a river, thick reeds swaying in the warm Nile breeze, and the whisper of an oar gently slicing through water. You're in ancient Nubia, modern-day Sudan, where the early sun shimmers off the water like gold foil. Here, dental care is something more intimate, more reverent. Today, you're shadowing the elders of a river village whose routines date back centuries, maybe longer. They greet the day not with chatter or chores, but with a quiet, meditative act, chewing, brushing, rinsing. Their dental hygiene isn't hurried or hidden. It's a sacred ritual, passed down like prayer. Your guide is Makita, a woman with more wrinkles than a banyan root and a voice like dry silk. She sits cross-legged on a stone bench, her brushing stick already fraying at the end. She gestures for you to sit and hands you your own twig. It's not Salvadora persica this time. This is from the desert date tree, with a bark that smells like earth after rain. Not too hard, she instructs. Let the stick do the work. You chew the end into soft bristles and begin to brush, slowly, matching the rhythm of her own movements. No mirrors, no paste, just the faint scraping sound of twig against enamel, and the warm rush of river air on your cheeks. Makita tells you stories between brushes, how her grandmother would rise before sunrise and brush while facing east, toward Mecca, how some believe the spirits of the dead can smell your breath when they visit in dreams. Clean breath is clean memory, she says. Later, she takes you to a gathering place shaded by tall reeds. Several elders are there, brushing together in silence. Each uses a slightly different plant, some bitter, some sweet, some that smell faintly of eucalyptus or anise. The variety is staggering. You watch one man who switches sticks halfway through his routine, one for the front teeth, one for the molars. You make a mental note, dental specialization, medieval edition. Historians still argue whether these brushing customs originated here or spread southward from Egypt. But archaeological evidence supports that ancient Nubians had advanced understanding of oral care. In fact, some mummified remains show teeth that are remarkably intact even by modern standards. And there's more than just brushing. Makita leads you to a low shrine built from river stones. Offerings are laid out, flowers, dried fish, even tiny bundles of herbs wrapped in reed leaves. We ask for strong jaws and truthful mouths, she explains, and we give thanks for the teeth that have not yet left us. It sounds poetic until she pulls out a hollowed gourd filled with fermented fig pulp, which she uses as a rinse. It smells faintly like vinegar and old honey. You try a sip and instantly regret it. Acquired taste, she chuckles. Throughout the day, you assist with a ceremonial tooth, rubbing, a kind of communal event where older children learn proper technique from the elders. It involves sitting in a circle, humming a low melody, and gently brushing while telling stories. The brushing isn't timed by clocks, but by the length of a tale. One boy tells a story about a crocodile who brushed his teeth with thorn branches until they turned gold. Another recounts a hunter who forgot to brush and was cursed to speak only in hiccups. There's laughter, song, and the steady rhythm of twigs on teeth. The ceremony ends with a gentle mouth rinse made of warmed river water and crushed mint leaves. It's subtle, cleansing, and far more soothing than the fig incident. You watch as everyone spits discreetly into the sand and gives a respectful nod toward the shrine. Ritual complete. There's a moment that evening when you sit alone by the river, your brushing stick resting beside you like a little wooden companion. The water flows quietly, birds call in the distance, and the sky deepens to a gentle blue-gray. You think about the way everything here is done with intention, even oral hygiene. Makita returns and sits beside you. She hands you a piece of sweet bark and says softly, "For dreams." You chew it thoughtfully. It tastes like cinnamon and resin and river reeds. Not every moment is mystical. Of course, earlier you did witness someone accidentally brush with the wrong stick, one meant for treating foot fungus. The look on their face was priceless. And Makita simply said, "That'll teach you not to borrow from the goat's shelf." Still, there's something comforting in the slowness of the practice here. No one rushes. No one multitasks. There's no quick brush before you go. You brush to begin the day and again to close it, like punctuation marks for your waking hours. As stars begin to blink above the river, the village grows quiet, fires dim, the air cools, and once again, you find yourself mimicking Makita's movements. Gentle brushing, slow breaths, the scent of mint and smoke mingling in the night air. And with each stroke of your twig, you feel more at home in this place where teeth are not just cleaned, but honored. You rise with the wind. Not the gentle breeze of a riverside dawn, but the dry, bone-colored gust of the Sahara. Today, you're not in a village or by a river. You're in the shifting lands of the Tuareg, the famed blue-robed nomads who navigate dunes and trade routes like the backs of their own hands. Here, oral hygiene must travel light, and yet, it never gets left behind. Your host this morning is Amistan, a camel trader with sun-leathered skin and a grin so radiant it looks professionally waxed. He's already up, packing his saddle with bundles of salt, dried dates, and, a tightly wrapped pouch filled with twigs, powders, and a little wooden scoop carved into the shape of a gazelle. You clean your teeth before water, he says, slipping on his indigo turban, because words come before thirst. And just like that, your brushing stick joins the caravan. You ride across cracked earth and gold-powdered dunes, pausing every few hours for a sip of water and, without fail, a quick scrub. The Tuareg don't treat tooth care as something for the morning or night. It's a rhythm, a portable ritual. Before meeting someone new, after a meal, even when the sandstorm clears and you're shaking dust out of your ears, out comes the twig. Their sticks are a bit different, too wiry and hard, made from a plant that thrives in dry soil and bristles like a porcupine after chewing. It's tough going at first. Your gums feel like they're being interrogated, but the sensation grows oddly satisfying. And the taste, cool, sharp, peppery, a welcome relief in the desert heat. Ambient shows you how to store your twig in a tiny leather sleeve, tied to your belt, for easy access. If you lose your camel, fine. If you lose your stick, may the spirits forgive your breath. You laugh, but he doesn't. That night, you camp beside a low rock outcrop, the stars sharp and endless above. A trader from another caravan arrives, offering powder from across the desert. Dried lemon peel mixed with fine ash and crushed tamarind. You try a pinch, it's gritty, citrusy, and leaves your mouth buzzing like you just gargled desert lightning. The Tuareg don't just trade goods, they trade routines, recipes, oral traditions. It's like a dental version of a traveling cookbook. You hear tales of plant resins from the Atlas Mountains, root rubs from Ethiopian highlands, and even one strange tale about a paste made from scorpion husk. That one might have been a joke. Might have. Historians still argue whether these trade routes helped shape oral health practices across the continent or whether the similarities arose independently. What's certain is that this knowledge traveled. It wasn't just gold and salt moving across the sands. It was bark, ash, leaf, and lore. At one point, you stop at a desert well where several caravans have gathered. It's like a social media feed, but dusty and very alive. Traders compare tools. One man shows off a double-ended twig, one end for brushing, the other for scratching sand out of his ears. Multi-purpose, if nothing else. You also see a woman using powdered bark mixed with camel milk to clean a toddler's teeth. The child giggles through the whole thing, probably more from ticklish gums than any sense of oral duty. Later, Ambient gives you a gift, a small pouch of desert powder used by warriors before long rides. Keeps the mouth sharp, he says. It's dark, almost blue, and smells faintly of cloves and rain, a surprising scent in a place so dry. You use it before sleep. It tastes strange but comforting, like spiced soil. And as you lie back under the endless stars, your teeth feel scrubbed, your gums soothed, and your breath like something the desert itself would approve of. Even out here, where life is stripped to its essential shade, water, salt, oral care remains. It's not vanity. It's not luxury. It's ritual. It's pride. It's the shared knowledge of a people who may not always know where they'll sleep, but always know how they'll start and end their day. You stare at the moon rising over the dunes and think back to the riverside, to Makita's slow brushing beneath the reeds. Now you're doing the same, only the brush is stiffer, the air drier, and the silence vast. One last rub of your stick, a quick rinse from your water skin, a sigh. And sleep arrives, soft and sandy. You wake to drums. Not loud or festive ones, these are slow, deliberate, and pulsing through the early dawn like a heartbeat in the earth. You're in a settlement tucked between savanna and forest, and today you'll witness something a little different. The transformation of tooth care from private ritual to public symbol. Because here, a clean smile isn't just about hygiene. It's a badge of status, tribe, and identity. Your host is Nana Kwaku, a dignified man with braided hair and eyes that miss nothing. He greets you with a two-finger salute and a wide grin, exposing teeth so white, and even you momentarily forget you haven't brushed yet. "Welcome," he says. "We're preparing for the teeth ceremony." Wait, what? It turns out, today is an important day in this community. Several youths are crossing into adulthood, and part of the celebration involves presenting themselves to the elders with spotless teeth and the confidence to smile widely, proudly, and without hesitation. Think debutante ball, but instead of dresses and dance, it's bark dust and brilliant molars. Your morning begins with the preparation of the ceremonial paste. This one is special: finely ground charcoal from sacred trees, dried hibiscus petals for scent and color, and a touch of ash from the ceremonial fire. The result is a dark, velvety paste with hints of sour fruit and smoke. You apply it with the help of Afi, a local woman known for her artistry in tooth painting. She uses a carved stick to rub the mixture in small circles along each tooth, humming softly as she works. Gums must be soft, like cassava leaves, she says, strong but never dry. After rinsing with warm water and ginger, you feel your mouth tingling. It's like your whole jaw got invited to a fancy event. As the ceremony begins, boys and girls line up under a canopy of palm leaves, brushing their teeth one final time before stepping forward. Each uses a different stick, often sourced from their family's ancestral land. You hear whispers, "That one's using royal baobab. His comes from the bitter cola grove." There are even styles to the brushing. Some swirl in a spiral motion, others move side to side, as their ancestors did. It's not just cleaning, it's choreography. And when they step forward, teeth gleaming, they're not just showing hygiene, they're showing readiness, adulthood, pride in lineage. You start to see the layers. In many parts of medieval Africa, teeth were far more than functional. They were symbolic, straight. White teeth could mark nobility or divine favor. Some communities believed gaps between the front teeth were lucky. Others valued filed or blackened teeth, shaped into points or stained with dyes to signify bravery, fertility, or beauty. You meet a young man whose teeth have been carefully blackened using a plant-based resin. Why black, you ask? He grins. Because a hunter's teeth should not shine in the bush. Makes sense, in a stealthy kind of way. Historians still debate how widespread these practices were and whether they were purely aesthetic or had practical roots. Some argue blackening protected the teeth from decay. Others say it was more about identity and tradition than medicine. Either way, the symbolism stuck. Later in the day, a quiet boy named Kojo offers to show you something special: his father's tooth tokens. He leads you to a woven mat and unfolds a cloth containing smooth stones, carved wooden symbols, and small bundles of herbs. Each one marks a moment, he says, a lost tooth, a first paste, a ceremony. You're touched. It's like a scrapbook for your smile. That evening, you attend the feast. Roasted yam, fish, and endless bowls of spiced stew are passed around. But even amid the flavors and chatter, people still take time to rinse, chew a stick, or refresh their breath with a leaf dipped in herbal oil. It's as routine as passing the salt. Before the night ends, the community gathers by the fire. A griot stands and begins to recite old tales heroes who won battles with nothing but clever words and a flash of brilliant teeth. Queens who demanded daily brushing as a sign of discipline. A village that once judged wisdom by how clean your molars were. A dirty mouth, the griot warns, hides dirty intentions. You smile, now well aware that your own mouth probably smells like yam and fish. Still, you pull out your own modest stick and join in the final brushing of the night. It's done together, in silence, a communal cleansing, a way to end the day with peace and clarity. One by one, people spit into the grass and offer a quiet blessing. And then it's sleep under a canopy of stars, your stick tucked beside you, your teeth cleaner than they've ever been, and your dreams perhaps a little brighter thanks to the soft hum of a well-cared-for smile. You wake not to a rooster or the wind this time, but to something gentler, older singing. Not loud or performed, but low, rhythmic, and close. A murmured melody, rising and falling with soft brushing sounds. You open your eyes slowly. Around you, the early light filters through woven walls. And there they are, 4 women, brushing their teeth in quiet harmony, singing as they move their sticks in sync. Today, You've found yourself in a community where oral care is not only functional or ceremonial, but musical. The brushing song is simple, just a few lines, repeated again and again. Up, down, side, side teeth like moonlight, breath like tide. Each syllable lands with a tap of twig on tooth. The song, your host tells you, has been passed down for generations, learned in childhood, sung in weddings, even hummed on battlefields. This village believes brushing isn't something you do to your body. It's something you offer to the day. Your host today is Amma, a teacher of oral tradition, not literacy, but memory. She explains that every family has its own brushing rhythm, some fast, some slow, some that change with the seasons or the phase of the moon. We learn it before we learn to speak clearly. She says, if your brushing song is wrong, your grandmother corrects you with a spoon. Amma shows you the stick they use here, thinner than others you've seen, soft but springy, with a faint cinnamon scent. It comes from a small tree that only grows near the marsh, whose roots are said to carry stories from underground. Some villagers claim the wood helps clear bad dreams. Others just like the taste. You try it with the brushing chant, awkwardly at first. The rhythm doesn't come naturally, but after a few lines, you feel yourself falling into it. It's soothing, predictable, like the ticking of a clock, but less judgmental. Children gather near, joining in. A toddler claps on the wrong beats. A teenage boy invents a drumline on his knees. Even an elder woman with only 3 teeth left joins with gusto, more humming than brushing, but clearly enjoying herself. Historians still argue how oral tradition and oral hygiene intersected in African cultures. Some believe brushing songs were invented simply to pass the time or teach technique. Others suggest they held deeper meanings, blessings disguised as instruction, or codes of personal conduct sung through the teeth. There's something sacred about it, not religious, necessarily, but deeply respectful, even fun. As the morning warms, Amma leads you to a communal circle near the cooking huts. A line of women and men are seated, brushing in unison, singing their versions of the tune. Some add harmonies, others just keep time with their feet. One man has a deep bass that makes the stick sound like a drum. A group of children imitate him and dissolve into giggles when one pokes his nose mid-brush. You're handed a different stick, this time tougher, slightly bitter. This one, Amma says, is for before meals. The other is for before sleep. There's a whole taxonomy here, some for waking, some for guests, even one for funerals. That one's dipped in ash and silence. As the brushing ends, people spit gently into the grass, offer a short spoken phrase, clear words, clean heart, and rise to begin the day. There's no fanfare, no announcement, just a shared moment, as brief and natural as the wind. Later, you ask if the brushing songs ever change? Oh yes, Amma laughs. We add verses for big events. Someone once composed a whole ballad when the chief lost a tooth during a wrestling match. It became a hit. You try to imagine your own dental routine accompanied by an anthem. The idea seems ridiculous until now. By afternoon, you've sat in on a brushing lesson for young kids. They recite the steps like poetry. Brush front teeth, brush the back, chew the bark, rinse, spit, smile, hum. One girl insists that if you hum without brushing, your ancestors will pinch your tongue in your sleep. Another argues that humming while brushing wards off nightmares. No one can prove either theory. You decide to hum anyway. In a shaded clearing behind the village, you visit a small shrine, low stones surrounded by carved sticks. Amma explains it's dedicated to the mouths that came before us. Elders leave bundles of bark here when they lose their last tooth. It's a farewell, she says, a thank you for a life of chewing, kissing, praying, and scolding. You leave a small stick of your own, your travel favorite, now worn to a nub, and tie a thread around it. It feels right, As night falls, the brushing song returns. Softer this time. You sit by the fire, stick in hand, mimicking the rhythm. Your mouth tingles. Your breath smells faintly of cinnamon and mint, and your heart feels oddly light. You never thought you'd associate peace with brushing your teeth, but tonight you're singing to your molars like they're old friends. Up, down, side, side, teeth like moonlight, breath like tide. The next morning, you find yourself surrounded by shelves. Not the wooden kind, but stone ones carefully stacked into the side of a shaded building, each one holding bundles of dried roots, clay pots filled with powders, jars of amber-colored sap, and bundles of feathers and beads. This is not a market stall. This is a healer's den. And today, you're here to meet a dentist at least, the medieval African version of one. His name is Kofi, and he greets you not with a smile, but with a gentle tap of a carved staff against the floor. "Come in," he says. "Your mouth tells me stories your voice does not." Charming. He's a traditional healer, an herbalist with decades of experience tending to teeth, gums, jaws, and, sometimes, entire spirits. Here, oral health isn't separated from the rest of the body. It's all connected head to heart to belly to breath. If your tooth aches, the cause might be worms, imbalance, wind, or even a quarrel you haven't resolved. He begins your appointment by inspecting your mouth. No gloves, no tools, just a steady gaze and a long wooden stick, which he uses to gently lift your lips and prod your teeth. You grind at night, he says without hesitation, and you clench when you lie. Rude, but accurate. He then brews a mouthwash hot water infused with crushed basil, neem leaves, and something bitter that makes your eyes water. You're told to swish for 10 heartbeats and spit onto a flat stone. Watch how it lands, he says. If it bubbles, your tongue is telling secrets. You glance at the foam. It's inconclusive. Next, he prepares a gum rub from fig tree sap and powdered turmeric. He applies it with a feather. Your gums tingle, then go blissfully numb. A breeze floats through the open wall, and for a moment, you're not sure if you're in a dental appointment or a spa run by forest spirits. Kofi explains that in this region, healers often served as the community's oral health experts. There were no drills, of course, no fillings, but there were solutions: antiseptic barks, numbing saps, and even smoke from specific herbs that could ease infection. If the tooth must leave, he says, holding up a small carved wedge, we ask it nicely first. You decide not to ask for a demonstration. He shows you his collection of specialized tools, narrow bone scrapers for plaque, hooked branches for dislodging seeds, even a tiny hammer used to tap aching teeth with coded vibrations. Sometimes the pain is not in the tooth, he says. Sometimes it's hiding in the ear, or the memory. Historians still argue whether these healers were primarily dentists or generalists. But what's clear is that they took oral health seriously, and many used surprisingly advanced methods. Some archaeologists have found ancient African skulls with drilled teeth or worn grooves, suggesting intentional intervention, not just folk remedies full-on pre-modern dentistry. Kofi invites you to assist in treating a patient. A young man has come in with sore gums and swollen cheeks. Kofi examines his mouth, then prepares a poultice of mashed okra, mint, and crushed charcoal. It smells like a salad gone rogue, but it seems to soothe the swelling within minutes. Cool roots for hot mouths, Kofi mutters. Later, he shows you how to make a pain-relieving chew dried cloves, softened in honey, then wrapped in plantain leaf. You place one between your cheek and gum and feel an instant zing, followed by a slow, blissful numbness. You wonder why we ever bothered with flavored gel tubes and plastic bristles. You ask him about bad breath. He raises an eyebrow. That is not a tooth problem, he says. That is a truth problem. You blink. Sometimes the mouth smells when the spirit is carrying too many lies. So, maybe brush and confess. You step outside for air and spot a small garden nearby. It's not for food, it's for toothbrush plants. Salvadora persica, neem, desert date, and more, all growing side by side like a little dental Eden. Children are tending it, snipping twigs and laying them out to dry on woven mats. One girl sees you watching and hands you a stick. "This one makes your tongue dance," she says with a grin. You try it. She's not wrong. It's like menthol and mischief. As the day ends, you thank Kofi for his lessons. He gives you a bundle of bark and a small carved box to carry your new brushing tools. You don't need spells, he says, just care. And maybe a good stick. You leave feeling lighter not just in the mouth, but in the mind. There's something powerful about knowing someone has looked into your teeth and seen your whole self. Maybe a bit unsettling, but mostly reassuring. As night falls, you sit beneath a tree, chewing gently on a mint-sweetened stick, watching fireflies blink between the leaves. Somewhere inside the hut, Kofi is humming. Maybe it's a spell, maybe it's just a very catchy brushing tune. Either way, your mouth is clean, your breath is calm, and your dreams are probably safe for now. You wake to the sound of a bell. Not a church bell or a clock, but a hollow, hand-beaten bronze chime, struck 3 times in the still morning air. It's a sign that the marketplace is open, and today, it's no ordinary market. You've been invited to an artisan gathering where beauty is as prized as function, and nowhere is that clearer than in the display of teeth. This isn't just about clean teeth anymore. It's about style, expression, even rebellion. Your guide, Zanelle, is a jeweler by trade, but something of a dental fashion historian by hobby. She greets you with a gleaming grin, not gleaming white, though her teeth are blackened to a lustrous sheen, polished, and dyed intentionally. It's elegance, she says, with a wink, and maybe just a bit of witchcraft. You walk through stalls where vendors hawk not just chewing sticks and pastes, but tooth ornaments, polished beads meant to be tied between incisors, gold caps that flash in the sun, dyes made from berries and burnt resin to darken the enamel into a glossy blue-black. In one corner, a woman carefully files a customer's teeth into sharp points, using a bone rasp and something that smells suspiciously like clove oil. You try not to flinch. The customer doesn't. She's grinning. In this region, Zanelle explains, tooth modification shows strength, adulthood, even romantic appeal. A gap between your teeth. That's lucky. Pointed teeth. Fierce. Polished black. Powerful? You nod, taking it all in. These aren't just trends, they're living traditions. And they vary wildly across regions. Some groups bleach their teeth using clay and lemon, seeking an ivory white finish. Others paint them with sap that hardens into a pearly glaze. Some even inlay tiny stones into the teeth themselves, glittering chips of quartz or amber, worn like a secret treasure. Historians still argue whether these cosmetic practices had medical value. Some suggest the dyes protected against decay. Others believe they were purely aesthetic, or spiritual, or both. Whatever the origin, one thing is certain. Smiles here are intentional crafted, cultivated, and proudly displayed. Zanelle shows you a booklet. Well, a bundle of bark pages depicting various tooth styles sketched in ink. Sharp points, scooped gaps, even teeth shaved into triangular peaks. This one, she says, pointing to a particularly dramatic pattern, was for warriors, so their war cries sounded more like growls. You wince. She shrugs, worth it for the intimidation. You're handed a bowl of herbal rinse made with cinnamon bark and tamarind. It's sweet and sour, with a faint metallic aftertaste. You swish politely and try not to ask what's floating in it. Later, you're invited to observe a coming-of-age ritual involving tooth painting. A young woman kneels while an elder gently applies a resin paste to her teeth using a small brush made from porcupine quill. The result? A deep obsidian shine. The elder offers her a mirror, and she beams clearly pleased. There's pride here, and community. This isn't vanity for vanity's sake. It's a way of saying, this is who I am. This is where I belong. Zanele leans over and whispers, and of course, it keeps the Europeans guessing. You laugh, but there's truth in it. Colonial-era journals are filled with bewildered descriptions of these practices, described as barbaric, grotesque, exotic. But those writers rarely asked why. They didn't see the symbolism, the aesthetic, the choice. They didn't see the artistry. As the day fades, the market begins to clear. You catch sight of a group of boys showing off their midnight teeth, blackened enamel glistening under the setting sun. One girl holds a tiny mirror made from polished horn and reapplies a touch of berry stain. For my evening smile, she says. You sit with Zanele as she packs up her stall. She offers you a parting gift, a sliver of dried bark soaked in resin and clove. Try this, she says, for shine and confidence. You chew, it's spicy, sharp, and leaves your mouth buzzing. As you walk back to your sleeping quarters, you find yourself reflecting on how many ways a smile can speak. Here, teeth are language, identity, decoration, maybe even a little protest. You run your tongue along your own, not bleached, not painted, not filed, just yours. And for the first time in a long while, they feel like part of a conversation. This time, you wake to a smell. Not the kind that coaxes you gently from sleep, but the kind that slaps your senses awake like a wet sandal. It's strong, pungent, ancient, and suspiciously familiar. You sit up, eyes blinking against the morning sun, and find a bowl beside your mat. Inside a thick, dark paste with a texture somewhere between mud and molasses. Crocodile dung and crushed pearls, your host says cheerfully. You stare at the bowl stares back. This morning, you're in the compound of a coastal noble family, a place where status is everything, and nothing says refined like brushing your teeth with what smells like a reptile's regrets. Your host, Cambon, is already dipping a delicately carved stick into the mixture. It's an old recipe, he explains, reserved for the upper class. The pearls cleanse, the dung balances the body's heat, or something like that. He shrugs, then grins. His teeth, to be fair, are impeccable. You cautiously mimic him, swirling the stick in the thick black paste and raising it to your mouth. The smell intensifies. There are hints of sea salt, crushed shell, fermented something, and a distinct swampiness. You hesitate. It's better than it smells, Cambon says. He is wrong. The taste is bitter, musky, and strangely salty sweet, with the gritty crunch of something you deeply hope is pearl. You brush anyway, if only out of politeness or a misplaced sense of historical commitment. As the sensation fades slowly, you learn that this mixture isn't unique to this household. Across certain regions, elite families used exotic, rare, or downright bizarre ingredients in their oral care, not just for cleanliness, but for display. The stranger and more expensive the paste, the more power it signaled. Crocodile dung wasn't common, but it wasn't unheard of either. Some believed it had cooling properties. Others thought it symbolically scared away rot, and crushed pearls. Well, who wouldn't want a touch of ocean treasure between their molars? Historians still argue whether these strange concoctions were truly effective or merely fashionable. Some ingredients had antimicrobial properties, others were probably just for flair. And in many cases, these elite pastes were so pungent, no one dared get close enough to argue their value. Later in the day, you visit the family's preparation room, a kind of ancient apothecary, where the household's pastes and powders are mixed fresh. A servant demonstrates the making of the crocodile pearl paste, drying the dung in the sun until it's brittle, grinding it into powder, adding crushed pearl, real or faux, depending on the budget, and then binding it all together with a sap-like binder that smells of mint and regret. There's a second batch, two less, aggressive, made with cloves, rose petals, and fine volcanic ash. For guests, the servant explains, or sensitive mouths. You try that one next. Relieved, it's spicy, aromatic, and thankfully, feces-free. Over lunch, Kambon describes how tooth care was tied to courtship rituals. A prospective suitor might prepare a special paste before visiting their intended, one meant to impress both visually and aromatically. In some cases, recipes were guarded like family secrets. There are even stories of rival families sabotaging one another's powders by slipping in bitter herbs or saltpeter. Romance, Kambon says, was dangerous work. He shows you a gift box once given by his great-grandmother to her future husband, a carved wooden case containing 6 distinct pastes, each labeled with symbols of affection: moon for devotion, shell for softness, flame for passion. The case includes tiny silver spoons and a mirrored dish. It's delicate, ornate, and designed entirely for the mouth. It becomes clear that for the elite, oral hygiene wasn't just habit, it was performance. A clean, scented mouth was like perfume for your breath, a signal of sophistication, wealth, and refinement. You try one final paste before the day ends, a rare blend made with powdered coral, lemon balm, and honey resin. It's sticky, citrusy, and surprisingly pleasant. This one's for sunset, Kambon tells you, so you sleep with sweetness in your mouth. As you prepare for bed, you're offered a soft cloth to wrap your brushing stick and a small sachet of dried herbs to place beneath your pillow. It keeps the dreams gentle, the servant explains. You lie down, your mouth tingling with remnants of pearl and plant, and maybe a little too much bold historical curiosity. The night is warm. The air smells faintly of clove and salt. And somewhere in the shadows, you can't help but smile because your teeth feel regal, ridiculous, and ready for the most high society dreams you've ever had. You awaken this time to the sounds of confusion. Not your own, but that of a group of newcomers, strangers in wide-brimmed hats and stiff collars, muttering and pointing at a market stall like it's a display of alien artifacts. You've arrived at a moment of contact, the early days of European exploration and colonial curiosity. And as you watch from a shaded corner, it becomes clear they're fascinated, baffled, and more than a little judgmental about what they're seeing. Today is about contact, misunderstanding, and the messy intersection of medieval African dental traditions with European assumptions, or, in simpler terms, colonizers getting weirded out by chewing sticks. You follow the small crowd of foreign traders through a bustling coastal market. They're sweating, fanning themselves, and whispering behind gloved hands as a local woman expertly prepares her dental care, wears sticks, powders, pastes, and even resin lozenges for breath freshening. One man leans over a bowl of dried bark chips and recoils. They chew these, he asks, to no one in particular. A young boy nods proudly and pops one into his mouth. The man stares, bewildered. You try not to laugh. These early European accounts, you realize, were often filled with horror and incomprehension. Many recorded African tooth care as primitive or unusual, focusing on the exotic nature of the tools rather than their effectiveness. Few stopped to notice how clean and strong the teeth actually were. Fewer still asked for a demonstration. But some did. In fact, you overhear one of the visitors, perhaps more open-minded than the others, asking a local elder about the blackened teeth of a woman passing by. She smiles gently, then explains, "We stain them to protect the mouth and keep our husbands loyal." The man scribbles in his notebook like he's just uncovered a secret. He hasn't. You hear another traveler arguing with his companion. I've seen them use charcoal. That can't be sanitary. His companion shrugs. Yet their teeth look better than mine. That part is true. In fact, historians now acknowledge that in many regions of pre-colonial Africa, dental health was better than in medieval Europe. Less sugar, fewer processed grains, and actual daily care. But back then, European journals focused on the strangeness, not the science. You wander through the market, pausing at a stall selling tooth powders in little gourds. A European woman, clearly an official's wife, picks one up, sniffs it, and recoils. Smells like firewood and flowers, she says, nose wrinkling. How peculiar. The vendor, unbothered, smiles politely and dabs a bit on his own stick, brushing casually while she watches, scandalized. Later that day, you speak with Kwame, a local man who acts as a translator for the traders. He explains that many families began guarding their oral care recipes more closely once outsiders showed interest. They think we're strange, he says, but they steal everything. Always. Indeed, European apothecaries would eventually import some of these ingredients, clove oil, myrrh, and even miswak twigs, though rarely with credit to their African origins. What began as ridicule quietly turned to replication. Historians still argue how much of Africa's dental tradition influenced European practices directly, and how much was simply absorbed through trade and rebranded. But we do know that by the 18th and 19th centuries, European toothbrushes began to look eerily similar to the African sticks they'd once mocked. You follow the newcomers to a demonstration hosted by a local healer. She crushes dried mint leaves, mixes them with salt and ash, and brushes her teeth with a practiced rhythm. The crowd watches, fascinated and slightly horrified. One of the Europeans leans over and mutters, "No bristles, no handle, barbaric." You lean over and mutter back, "No cavities, no dentists, magical." You don't stay long. You've had enough awkward gawking for one day. That evening, you visit an older man in a quiet courtyard, someone who remembers the first time these outsiders arrived. He's brushing his teeth slowly with a frayed stick. The motion, meditative. "They thought we were wild," he says. "But we never needed their medicines, not for our mouths." He shows you a pouch worn filled with powders and herbs his grandmother used. "She told me to keep smiling. It confuses them." You sit with him, brushing your teeth in companionable silence as dusk settles around you. The distant buzz of colonial confusion fades into the rustling of leaves and the creak of wooden doors. And as you rinse with clove water under a sky going soft with stars, you realize even in the face of misunderstanding, the traditions held. The brushes didn't stop, the songs continued, and the smiles endured quiet, clean, and proud. By now, your morning routine is automatic wake, chew, brush, rinse, and, if available, humbly decline any paste containing animal droppings. But today feels different. You can sense it in the slower rhythm of the village, the more reflective mood in the air. Because today, you're stepping back to look at the big picture. Not just the tools, pastes, or songs, but the results. You've brushed with bark, rinsed with ash, sung songs to your molars, and watched smiles painted like artwork. But how well did all this actually work? According to many modern researchers, surprisingly well. As you help a group of elders gather firewood for drying new bark, one pauses to crack a grin. He's missing a few teeth, understandable at his age, but the rest are straight, intact, and still anchored like tree roots. You ask him how many times a day he brushes. 3, he says, maybe 4, if I argue with my wife. You laugh, then wonder, was this typical? Turns out, yes. Historical accounts from across pre-colonial Africa describe frequent brushing as the norm after meals. before sleep, and even before prayer. The reasoning wasn't always framed in terms of microbes or enamel strength, but it was rooted in habit, tradition, and a strong aversion to bad breath. You help prepare more chewing sticks with a local family, carefully bundling them with twine. Their teenage son grins as he carves a notch into his stick for grip. Everyone here brushes. He says, "Babies chew. Old people rinse. If your teeth fall out, you still brush your gums." There's pride in that routine, but was it effective? Archaeologists have uncovered skulls from medieval African sites, Nubia, Mali, and ancient Ghana, showing minimal signs of tooth decay. In some areas, less than 10% of teeth had cavities, compared to 80 to 90% in contemporaneous European remains. Gums were healthier, tooth loss was less severe, and abscesses rare. Historians still argue why this was the case. Some say it's the diet, less sugar, more fiber. Others point to the abrasiveness of the sticks and powders. And many agree that frequent, thorough cleaning using antimicrobial plants like Salvadora persica and neem was probably the biggest factor. Compare that to medieval Europe, where brushing was rare, sugar was a novelty turned addiction, and dentists were more likely to be barbers with pliers than actual specialists. The contrast is stark. You spend the afternoon with a young healer in training who's studying old techniques. She shows you drawings made by her grandmother, simple, tooth-by-tooth diagrams with notes about which powders work best for front teeth, which sticks to use for bleeding gums, and which songs to sing during morning versus evening brushing. "This one," she says, pointing to a song with long, drawn-out notes, "is for when your heart is tired. You sing it while brushing slowly." You try it. Your arms relax. Your breath slows. Your teeth feel like they're being rocked to sleep. Later, you visit a burial site with a local historian. With permission, she shows you several skulls recently unearthed during a construction project. Some are centuries old, and yet the teeth still in place, still whole, still showing wear from chewing sticks rather than rot from sugar and neglect tell their own story. These people didn't need dentists, she says. They needed their trees and their habits. Of course, not every tooth was perfect. You see signs of wear-flattened molars from years of grain pounding. You hear stories of gum disease from those who used the wrong plants. But on the whole, these communities had smiles that endured. And they did it without fluoride, without dental insurance, and definitely without battery-powered toothbrushes that play Baby Shark. You reflect on your own past habits, the rushed morning brushes, the guilt of forgetting, the mechanical swipes without meaning. And here, brushing feels like connection to ancestors, to nature, to self. The sun dips low. You're given a final brushing tool to try an especially soft twig, soaked in rosewater and lightly dusted with crushed cloves. It's a luxury blend, a reward, maybe, for the journey so far. You brush slowly as children laugh nearby, each with their own stick, each mimicking the elders. You feel clean, but more than that, you feel cared for, not just by others, but by yourself. And you think maybe dental care was never just about avoiding rot or pleasing others. Maybe it's about tending to your mouth as if it were sacred. Because it is. It speaks for you, breathes for you, sings for you. And when you care for it, something deeper sings back. The final morning begins in quiet. No singing, no bells, just the soft rustle of wind through grass, the crackling of coals in the cooking fire, and the gentle scraping of twigs against teeth. You've returned to a small village near the edge of the forest, a place where things move slowly, where brushing isn't announced or performed. It simply happens. Today, you're brushing beside the same tree you sat under on your first day. The bark's texture is now familiar beneath your fingers. The taste of the twig is no longer foreign. You chew the end, wait for the bristles to form, and begin your slow, circular movements. Nobody needs to tell you what to do anymore. This place isn't flashy. There are no pearl pastes or crocodile dung mixtures here. No teeth filed to sharp points or ink-black grins. Just simple, daily care. A return to the root, literally. Nearby, a grandmother is showing her grandson how to clean between his teeth using a thin sliver of reed. He winces at first, then laughs as she taps him gently on the head. "No pain," she says, "just cleaning the corners of your stories." You spend the morning visiting the brushing grove. Yes, grove, a small patch of land where toothbrush trees grow tall and content. It's quiet, shaded, and soft with dry leaves. Locals come here not just to gather sticks, but to sit, reflect, even meditate. One man brushes while watching ants build a nest. Another leans against a trunk, eyes closed, his twig moving rhythmically like he's swaying with a memory. Someone hands you a bowl of warm herbal rinse, clove, mint, cinnamon. The scent is soothing, the liquid light. You swirl it gently, watching how it moves in the bowl like a slow tide. You sip, swish, and spit into the roots of a tree. A quiet offering. Historians rarely write about moments like this. They document tools and techniques. They debate the influence of trade, religion, and colonization. But they miss the feeling, the why behind the practice. Not just survival, not even tradition. Something else, something slower. Here, oral care is a kind of pause. A moment between moments, a reminder to breathe, to taste, to feel the body as it hums with quiet rituals. And in that stillness, you understand brushing wasn't invented to fight cavities. It was created to connect. You think of everything you've learned, of Sultan Bako's golden smile, of Makeda brushing by the Nile, of the Tuareg in the dunes, humming songs through grit and heat, of Zanele, painting teeth like she was painting spirit, and Kofi, who saw secrets behind your molars. You've watched teeth filed, dyed, brushed, sung to, soothed, soothed again, and each time they told a story of beauty, of belief, of belonging. Even now, as a child presses a freshly cut twig into your hand and runs off laughing, you feel a quiet joy. You sit beneath the tree and brush. There is no rush, no audience, no instruction. Just the soft sound of bristles against enamel. Just you, and the tree, and the sky, slowly changing color overhead. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you're part of it all. Now, your hands fall still. The brushing is done, your teeth clean, your breath steady and warm. The twig rests lightly in your palm, its fibers frayed and softened. Like an old friend who's done their job. Around you, the brushing grove is hushed, the sun a golden whisper behind the leaves, and the wind no longer stirring but swaying. You breathe in slowly. The faint scents of mint, bark, and wood smoke linger like a memory on the tongue. Pleasant, earthy, safe, far off. Someone hums, a gentle song, familiar, a lullaby made from leaves and time. Your jaw relaxes. Your shoulders sink. You feel the weight of every story you've passed through quiet elders, giggling children, fierce warriors with sharp smiles, lovers with honey breath, all of them brushing, rinsing, spitting, singing, all of them connected by this simple, sacred act. And now you are too. So you lean back? Let your thoughts grow long and lazy. Let your eyelids grow heavy, like slow-falling curtains at the end of a good tale. The night is wrapping itself around the world, soft and warm and waiting. And in that hush, right there, in that final hush, you smile, just a little. Because you understand now, and your teeth, they're ready to dream.